by Isaac Johnson from Leeds Live.
Hi, how are we?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, good. Glad the transfer window is open. A few more things are happening or not happening, we'll get on to, but yeah, no, very good, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, we were just talking beforehand, and it's one of those, isn't it? Where, well, actually, is this your first transfer window, or is it your second transfer window now? Did you have January as well?
Second, because
Second.
I came in halfway through the January window,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's going to be a very different window, uh, this one compared to the last one,
I
to put
think.
it lightly. So yeah, so
Well,
second technically.
yeah, that's the reason I asked, because I just think you're in for it with Leeds fans, aren't you? You're gonna have people atting you on X all the time, asking if there's any news coming. But that's the nature of being a journalist, I guess.
Yeah, I've had a few already, but obviously when we've got something, we'll share it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, before we get into it, there's obviously going to be some discussions around existing players and potential transfers, all the rumours that Twitter and the likes love to talk about. But yeah, special thanks to Bass and Bly, sponsors of the podcast. Anyone who's been following us knows that Bass and Bly is a photographic dealership based in Harrogate. They sell the very best in used equipment from Leica, Swarovski's Ice, Fuji, all sorts of good stuff. They currently have a new website has just been built, and it's looking really good. You can get 10% off all used gear if you spend over £100 as well, so really good. If you go there, which is www.bassandbly.com, the link should be in the description below if you're listening or watching on YouTube. So yeah, there was a few bits of news coming out of the club, which you are busy because there's always stuff to talk about with Leeds, but you're obviously quieter than you would be in the season. And then naturally, you'll get to that point where the transfer window is still open and the football's happening, so you're doubly busy as well. But Junior Firpo was one that reading through all your articles this week, which have been great, and there's a link to Isaac's articles below in the description as well, so you can go and read. It's a direct link to Isaac, so you can read all of his. But yeah, the one I looked at was Junior Firpo talks there, but also since then as well, he's obviously come back with an injury that he's had on international duty.
Yeah, that's right. So um, we don't know the full extent of it, but if fans remember, he missed the last game of the season against Plymouth, um, for well, due to setbacks basically. I think it's to do with his hamstring because that's what Farker had said the week before the Plymouth game. So I presume it's the same thing. Yeah, so he's pulled out of the Dominican Republic games. They played one last night, well, in the early hours this morning actually. So he didn't play in that obviously. And he's not going to play in the World Cup qualifier either. They've got a Gold Cup campaign starting in 8 days' time. So for those who aren't aware, that's basically the North American and Central American equivalent of the European Championships. And who knows if he'll make it. It doesn't sound great. Doesn't sound like it. Um, it depends on the severity of the injury, but basically, if it is severe and it does need more treatment, then he will be returning to Leeds or the expectancy is that he will be returning to Leeds to
Sign his contract, is that?
yeah. I'm not sure about that so far. But yeah, so if it is something that's a bit more sinister, he will come back to Leeds and get that sorted because he's still under contract until the end of this month. So Leeds still have that obligation, and obviously as well, they, they want to because they want to keep him on as well. So um, yeah, so that's that story really with Firpo. It's the injuries that carried over from last season, and the statement from the Dominican Republic made it very clear, that the he was fully committed to the cause. I mean, he got called up and he went out to train, and then last week, and then it was decided within the medical staff that he wasn't fit to play basically. So it's not like he's trying to shirk anything. Not that he ever would or any
No,
opponent
no.
would. Of course, especially with the big competition coming up. Um, but yeah, that's what we know about that so far. We don't know the full extent of it though.
but people just, there's kind of a lot of eyes emojis on Junior Firpo being injured, and what does it mean? And I think people like to read into these things quite deeply, don't they? And hope there's some positive news out the side of it for Leeds, although it's negative news for him, being injured. But I think that just speaks to more how people feel about Firpo and how much they'd like him to potentially stay. But obviously Leon and others are in the mix now, so yeah, I mean the likelihood of him staying, in my opinion, seems pretty slim.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, to be honest, if you have got the likes of Leon, if you have got the likes of AC Milan knocking at your door, it's pretty hard to say. Pretty hard to say no. Let's be honest. Um, what this time away does do, it does allow him to reflect a bit more on his choices, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it's not more hectic. Now, just to reiterate what we said, that's not that's not the reason he's pulled out. I'm not suggesting anything like that. But that is a side effect. At the moment, there's been no breakthrough in talks with Leeds. That's what we know. And all the reports are suggesting that there's several teams looking at him as well. So yeah, it'll be an interesting one to see what happens. But if he does go, then it's clear Leeds needs new left back.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard. Well, at this point, we can come on to this. But one thing that I did read on your articles as well was Leeds United have obvious tactical area to address ahead of the Premier League season, which I thought was a really good piece. And as I say, anyone watching or listening, go click on Isaac's articles and go have a read. But you rightly point out that we scored 95 goals last season, and only 13 of those were from set pieces, which was below average. It was bottom four of compared to the Premier League standards. So
in proportion, yes, in
proportion, yeah,
that's right, yeah. So they scored 13 from set pieces.
Yep.
In the sense of all phases of play. 'Cause sometimes it can be ahead of a corner that comes in. It's
third or fourth, yeah.
So 13 overall. I think it was about 6 that were direct, sort of like either penalties or from the corner. No free kicks, no direct free kicks, interestingly. But yes, so the total of 13 would have been average in the Championship, and it would have been average in the Premier League. But the proportion, like you were saying, the proportion of set piece goals to overall goals was notably low. But that's probably, again, as I mentioned in the piece, because Leeds had so much possession.
Yep.
And it's like, if you look at the Premier League as well, Liverpool had the same, Manchester City had the same. Obviously, very possession based teams. So there's not a reliance to sort of set up the attack on set pieces. But you can go and read the piece in full. Basically, I've got a lot of analysis on that in terms of like the bottom 3 clubs from the Premier League last year and the relegated clubs from the Championship as well. The long and short of it is that while set pieces, they're no longer an indication that a team is struggling if they just score by set pieces all the time. That's not an indication. They're very much important. And there is if Firpo does go, and if Strauch is to be replaced as the secondary centre-back, then Leeds do have a question about who's their aerial threat. They've also got questions over who's going to be the set-piece specialist now that Joe Rothwell's gone.
Yep.
You wouldn't think Gruev would be a regular starter, so they've got that to figure out as well. So it's definitely something to consider. I'm not saying it's definitely a prior, something that must get at all costs, but it's definitely something that if you can get a striker, obviously you can head. If you can get centre back, you can head. If you get someone who can whip in at the ball, then that's what's needed.
Yeah, the Sunderland game is the perfect one for that, isn't it? That highlighted 2 goals from set pieces. Yeah. Rothwell, Pascal Strauch, and we haven't really seen. Well, we haven't seen much of that from in terms of dead ball specialists outside of Rothwell, really. So, yeah, it does. I mean, the closer we get with this transfer window, the more nervous I'm starting to feel about everything. And the more I read, I kind of tie myself in knots with it as well. And I was, I read quite a lot about Adam Underwood and his background. Obviously, he's been at Leeds for a long time and was head of the academy at one point, but he's head of recruitment. I think that might be the wrong title, but that's certainly his role within the club.
Sporting director.
Sporting director, sorry.
Yeah, but you are right. He will cover recruitment as well.
Yeah, and and it's hard to not sound negative. This is just my nature, but I just feel like that's such a pressurized job. You know, it's Leeds United going into the Premier League, and it's the first time he's done that role. And you know, Parag Marate and the team there, they know everyone. They've worked with them for a number of years. They know the quality there, but there's an underlying feeling for me of like, oh, the pressure is on to to get this right, going into the new season.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because obviously Angus left as CEO over the summer for Everton, and his exit was confirmed in March, which gave the board time to sort of think things through. Um, now, um, they looked at the boardroom structure, so it wasn't just the personnel, but those few months allowed them to think, right, what's the best structure we can go with? And so they've gone for a managing director in Robbie Evans, who he will essentially take over the CEO duties of Kinnear. And then you've got Adam Underwood as well, who's obviously the sporting director. Um, so it is a I'm going to say a new look board, but it isn't because they've hired internally, so they know the club, the trusted figures, and also the fact that they've hired internally as well means that Farker now has got his excuse me, he's got his people in place ahead of
Yeah.
the summer in good time as well. And after the week after, or the week of the parade, actually, Fark said he was due to sit down with the board and sort of work out how they're going to work operationally. So that's already been sorted. You would have thought. Um, I'd be amazed if it hasn't. And so, from that point of view, I think a few creases have been ironed out. But yeah, you're right. You know, it's definitely all eyes on these guys. Um, we some local journalists held a call with Parag Marate on the day before the parade, and I'm sure you saw the coverage across various outlets. But he basically said that the 49ers and the Leeds board are going to work in collaboration. That nothing's going to change in terms of how they communicate. Although he did say that there will be a bit more of an emphasis on what he called group decisions. Now you can read into that what you will, but he was saying, look, being honest, there is more jeopardy, there's more money at stake. So let's hear how that plays out. But he did underline that no player will be brought in without Farker's say so. He's got the final say. He's got a veto vote. So if he doesn't want to play, he's not coming in. So that's encouraging.
Definitely, it is definitely encouraging. There was also a new role advertised, which was head of football analytics. I don't know if you saw that as well, Isaac. And Leeds are looking obviously to enhance decision making at a data level, which would obviously support recruitment, performance, and the medical department as well. And there's obviously been talk for a long time around following the models of how other teams have done it. You know, in particular, Brentford are one that have been extremely data led in recent seasons. Do you think that is a key area, or do you think it'll have a massive swing on what happens at the club? I mean, obviously, that person isn't in the door yet, so it's not going to have any bearing on the transfer market potentially this window.
Well, it shows their intent, doesn't it? At
Yeah.
least, very least, it shows their intent. Um, Marate is obviously he's come from the 49ers and American football, where it's very analytics based, and he's been analytics based anyway. Um, so he has those sort of tendencies anyway. Um, and yeah, data will be a big thing going forward, and I don't think that's particularly anything necessarily new actually to the Premier League. Obviously, you got Brentford, you got Brighton, as you say, um, but most teams will have data departments now.
Hmm.
Now Leeds probably will have slightly more. I'm guessing a more emphasis on that, given the role that they've advertised. Um, which we'll see how that plays out because um, you can't always go by the data. You have to go by character checks, and that's what Daniel Farker said in January about signings. The player's got to be affordable, he's got to be of good quality, but he's got to be of good character as well. Because at the end of the day, especially next season when Lee's going to be probably fighting relegation, you're going to need good characters around you. You don't need players who are going to, sink. You need players who are going to stand up. And it's all right, being in the championship and winning every week, but you need the characters who have stood the test. And maybe have had Premier League experience. I'm not saying relegation experience necessarily. We can come on to sort of which targets they might be or they should be looking at. But yeah, in terms of the analytics, it's something that will definitely play a part, and it will definitely be already has been part of scouting for targets and looking at targets as well. But I don't think that's anything that's too unusual nowadays. That's what I'd say.
No, not at all. I think it's just interesting that Leeds are stepping up there
Yes.
as a need to kind of not necessarily address it, but just make sure that we're going to the next level and it becomes a core part of everything we do. Funnily enough, I remember when I was a kid, my dad going to the football games, and my dad saying to me, American football is all about analytics, all about stats. And he said, I can see it one day coming over to the UK because it makes such a marker for how you make decisions. And here we are, 25 years later, we're in that place, which is interesting.
It is interesting how it's come in, because Brandon Harrison was speaking the other day, and he was saying that he has been allowed to after training stay out and do more repetition, what he calls repetition training, so whether that's shooting or crossing, whatever it is. But he said, like, not every club nowadays will do that, because they'll look at the analytics, look at the metrics, look at the fitness and everything like that. And some coaches will be like, no, you need to get in, you need to rest. And so in terms of that side of it, it's it's clearly already in the game, and I'm sure Leeds will utilise those stuff, and already have utilised those kind of stuff as well. So it's definitely something that is going to be a prominent part, I would have thought, especially, like you say, given the 49ers involvement and the operations there.
Yeah, exactly. Totally different sports, but data is everything in the future. If you think AI in itself needs data to,
oh gosh,
and that's the thing that frightens me. Keep that out of football.
Let me just clarify something, by the way. There's an image going around online that someone says that it might be the new Leeds kit. That it's like a. Ever since it's been revealed that it's or reported that the kit's going to be, the away kit's going to be blue, there's this certain design that's been circulated, and it's not that is, I can categorically say that the design that is being circulated is the one. It's got gold trims, and it's a different style to the one that's been reported, and that's not because that is a that is an AI version of an article that we did a few months ago. We asked AI to design the Leeds next.
I was waiting for you, Isaac, to just pull out the new one as a
yeah. Here it is. Exclusive reveal. No, I can't do that. I don't know. All I know is that the home kit's white.
Well, yeah. I reckon there's a whole episode on us torturing ourselves about AI, but we'll probably leave it for today. The other thing that you've been reporting on, which is obviously a known thing, but I still find this an absolute minefield and have to read things about 5 times and get AI ChatGPT to kind of surmise it for me as well. But that's the PSR cycle, which ends on the 30th of June. Yes. And Rocco and I were talking about this on the last podcast, in that you feel you almost don't want to talk about the financials in football and the business side of it, but you kind of have to know it to understand what's going on in your football club and what they're aiming for and what the challenges are going to be. And PSR is obviously one of those things which it sounds like, obviously we're at the end of this 3-year cycle that comes at the end of June, and on the basis of that, anyone coming here for transfer rumours and transfer watch, we're probably not going to make any before that date. Would you say, Isaac?
Yeah, I'd say that is not only a likelihood but a probability. Now, you can never rule anything out. You can't rule anything out. But at the end of the day, we're still in the PSR cycle, where Leeds can only lose 13 million over this season. Whereas if they wait a few weeks, they'll have the scope to lose 35 million. And so that's over for those who are perhaps not necessarily clued up. I'm sure many people are clued up, but just for clarity, Leeds next season will be able to lose over the next 3. In fact, let me start again because it's all right. I've got all the lingo in my head. I'm trying to trying to put it in layman's terms. So Premier League clubs and every club is only allowed to lose a certain amount over 3 years. Every season you're in the Premier League, you're allowed to lose 35 million. Every season you're in the Championship, you're only allowed to lose 13 million. Now, obviously, Leeds have been in the Championship for 2 of these 3 seasons because the Premier League season coming up counts towards this new Premier League cycle as of the start of July, i.e., past June the 30th. So Leeds will have 61 million. They'll be able to lose 61 million over that 3-year course. Sunderland have the same. Because Burnley were only in the Championship for 1 season, they'll have 83 million that they're allowed to lose. And then for all the rest of the Premier League clubs, they're allowed to lose 105 million over that 3-year period. So Leeds can only lose 61.
We're squeezed already.
Yeah, and most of the Premier League can only can lose 105 million. So that's a massive. What's that? A 44 million pound difference already.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what Leeds are up against. You know, and obviously they need a massive squad overhaul as well. And so, in terms of incomings, it just makes more sense to register them in July when you've got more space to lose. Basically, you've got more scope to hold these transfers. Now we could see a sale maybe before the end of June. That's a possibility. Obviously, Rasmus Christensen, he's already gone. That was a pre-agreement with Eintracht Frankfurt that went through on the start of the window. So that's already done. But there could be more because all sales are going to do is bolster the club's position. So that could happen, but I wouldn't really expect any incomings until July. You know, look, 1st of July could come round, and then we have a signing. But I don't see anything before then for the reasons we've outlined.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You're not damaged anything there, have you? You're all right.
No, it's all right. It's not my water bottle over.
All right, good. I was hoping there wasn't water everywhere. We're gonna have to. We'll pause it all. We'll come back. We'll come back another day. Oh dear, no. And and obviously there's a few names been thrown around, which we can get into. Or we can't. But one thing I wanted to say was I think there's a feeling from Leeds fans which has been there for a long time, which is, you know, Leeds has the pulling power, which I don't disagree with, and I feel that as a Leeds fan as well. You would always think, why would anyone not want to come to Leeds? And that was certainly the case. You know, when you look back and you think of the people that we attracted, Rafinha is obviously the one that everyone always talks about. But I think even in those few years since that's passed, I get the feeling that agents and players are more worried about going to a club that's potentially just come up. Because they know the chances of survival are against those that have been promoted, and it's even more so. And I think even the media obviously covers that in great detail as well. So there's that sort of scare factor. And the reason why I say that is because a week or so ago, Kelleher from Liverpool, your team, Isaac. Not that I'm outing you, but previous people that have listened know that you're a Liverpool fan, but you do cover Leeds United. There was a lot of talk of Kelleher coming to Leeds, and that was, you know, would have been brilliant for us. And he's obviously gone to Brentford. And that's the sort of thing that makes Leeds fans think, you know, we feel we're a bigger club and we're missing out to Brentford. And I agree, we are, but we're not at that point. You know, it's going to take it's going to be midterm to kind of get into a place where we're able to compete with players that we really, really want, I think.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's something to bear in mind this summer. So, you know, if you look at it from Kelleher's perspective, where, Leeds would have had to convince him to essentially sign up to a relegation battle after a few months after winning the title. That's a tough gig.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough. And then obviously when you throw into the mix more, you know, quite established Premier League clubs, because, you know, they are, Leeds just come up. You chuck like Brentford in there, or Brighton, or whoever. That, you know, players are more likely, unfortunately, to go to those clubs because they're more established in the Premier League. They're less likely to get involved in a relegation battle. Excuse me. If anything, they're probably looking upwards rather than behind them. And the fact is, the last 2 seasons, the 3 promoted clubs have gone straight back down.
Yeah.
And so, if you're an agent and you're looking at that, you're thinking, okay,
Yeah,
rather,
Ramsdale is a great example of that, with going from Arsenal into the Southampton side as well. How that makes a difficult situation for him now. Does he stay? Does he become a championship player, or does he move on?
Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly from the player's point of view, that's the risk, isn't it? In terms of my opinion on Leeds trying to get Ramsdale, I'd say no. I'd say if you need to get a good proper well, he is an established top flight goalkeeper, but one who hasn't got so many relegations on his CV. If you're going to spend big, you need to make sure you get the quality in return. I think goalkeepers should be top of the priority list, to be honest. But yeah, so and this unfortunately I think will be a theme of Leeds's transfer window, in the sense that they might go for targets, and other clubs who are more established in the Premier League will also be after them. And if you're going to balance between the two, if you're a player, you're probably going to go to the club who's not in relegation risk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so that's the tough task that Leeds face. That's not to say, obviously, I'm not being all doom and gloom. Leeds definitely will. They'll be able to attract people. I mean, the reputation of Leeds in Europe it goes before itself. It's everyone knows the size of the Leeds of the club. It's just the security of the club in the Premier League, and that's the massive challenge they've got to overcome. I think Leeds probably, Marate said 6 months ago that they were playing transfer target options, even before promotion. Obviously, he admitted that we might have been premature, but we were confident, which is fair enough. And I think they'll have to do stuff early. Having said they probably won't sign anyone till July. That doesn't mean they're not talking to people. That doesn't mean they're not doing the background. Of course, the scouting stuff. The best chance I think Leeds have got of getting their more esteemed targets is probably earlier on, before anyone else can come in and reach them. But at the same time, Tanaka was a late window. Was not the first choice anyway, and look what's happened. So it's not all doom and gloom if you don't get the first choice by any means, and you can bet that the hierarchy will have more than just player A and then no one else underneath. We'll have the main target, and we'll have about 15 others underneath that will go for as well. So yeah, time will tell.
I lean on the Rafinha transfer a lot for assurance, because he was a last day of the window signing as well for us. So
and they do happen.
Yeah. A few names that have come up: Igor Paixão. Is that I think I've pronounced it right?
Yeah. It was Paixão.
Paixão, yeah.
Paixão.
But I mean, there's been so many clubs that have been linked with him since. I think even Arsenal today were potentially looking at him. So Leeds have immediately gone down the pecking order there. There's been loads of conversations about Beto at Everton, West Ham midfielder whose name I forget as well. So yeah, I mean, what's your thought? What are the sort of standout ones? Not in terms of what we know, but just what do we feel that you think Leeds might be in with a better chance?
Oh gosh.
And equally, this is the thing, is at the minute it's all speculation, isn't it? Like, everyone just loves to speculate because
there's lots of rumors going about. I mean, we know that Paixão would be open to a Leeds move, but if I'm being honest, he's probably open to every Premier League or most Premier League. And if you have the likes of Arsenal coming in, or even Brighton, then Leeds just can't compete with that, unfortunately. So it's good news that he's open to Leeds, but how much weight that actually carries in reality, I'm not so sure. But anyway, so there's a lot of players that have been linked. There's like your Callum Wilsons, your Jamie Vardy. At least that's just not what they need, or especially up front. They need someone who's got stamina. They need someone who's got legs and can transition quickly, because Leeds are going to be on the back foot for a lot of the games next season. Unfortunately, although Joe Peru scored 19 goals and walked away with the championship boot next season, his inconsistency is a real worry, and also his style of play suits Leeds when they have possession and they have territory.
Yeah.
He's not really a transitional striker. I mean, he can do a little bit, but that's not his strength. He can link up play well, but that's by dropping deep from a high position.
Yeah.
So that's different, you know. Yeah, go on.
For me, it's always not always. I mean, today this landed in my brain as we need an amalgamation of Joel Piroux and Patrick Bamford. Patrick Bamford, who can do brilliant running and pressing off the ball. Joel Piroux just doesn't have the pressing, but he has the finishing, and it feels like we need that person, particularly like you say, when we're out of possession a lot in the Premier League. We just need someone to be driving the pressure. Obviously, we were so good at it in the Championship, but we're playing at a level now where you've got defenders who are much better and can pass the ball around. So that's what we need.
You can't afford to go missing for lengths of time that Peru did, unfortunately. You know, before he scored 4 at Stoke and essentially stole the Golden Boot. I say stole, that's a bit harsh, but he got a Golden Boot because of that. He didn't score in 9 games. You just can't do that.
Yeah.
It's the same with Aronson, really. Although, in terms of Aronson, I think Leeds do need a number 10, whether that's to back up Aronson or to usurp him. But what I would say about Aronson is that he thrives better against higher lines. Now, while he wasn't fantastic in the Championship, and I completely understand why, you know, fans are calling for him to be replaced, and I tend to agree with that. However, I can see a world in where Aronson starts because of the high lines of the Premier League. You just think about Middlesbrough. He played brilliant against Middlesbrough when there was the higher line. The transition against Watford, the 4-0, he fantastic in that. So against higher lines, he can do a job, and he obviously runs a lot, and obviously he presses a lot. So he ticks the boxes there. So, you know, if that's one position that perhaps next gets neglected, well, I don't think it can get neglected actually, because you need more backup actually. So I'll take that back. But there is a world basically where I can see Aronson starting. Now, whether that's the ideal scenario or not, I'm not sure. But you know, Farker is a fan of his energy and of his pressing. So we'll see. But in terms of Aronson as well, he's got to think about World Cup next year, by the way. So if someone comes in and usurps his place, and he doesn't get much football, then he's got a decision to make, because there's a home World Cup in 12 months' time, and does he want to be on the bench somewhere where he's not going to impress Mauricio Pochettino, who left him out of the March squad anyway? So if he does leave, it could be for that reason, but we don't know. And he's been talking in the last few days, and it seems like he has no intentions of even thinking about that, which he's got 2 years on his deals. You wouldn't expect it. So, but in terms of sort of, I don't know, transfer targets or rumoured transfer targets that stick out, it's difficult to know. It's so early at this stage. There's so many players who have been linked. There's a lot that are just absolute no-goes. There's no point in me starting to list them now, because there's just far too many. But the priority areas, I think, are in this order: goalkeeper, striker, left back if Firpo goes. If he stays, it becomes less of a one, but still you've got to be mindful of it. Then a centre back or a number 10, and then a left winger if Solomon isn't signed, which who knows? Who knows? Well, at this stage, it's too early. And then probably a midfielder as well, I'd say. Those are the areas.
Probably felt a little bit more confident of Solomon coming back to us when Ange was still at Spurs, but obviously he's been sacked as a Tottenham's manager within the last 24 hours, I think. So that there's often a case where players are asked to go back, and the new manager will have a look at them, and does he then favour that player, and it makes it more complicated for us, which would be a real shame, because I think Solomon would be brilliant for us.
Well, I've actually just written a piece that's going out.
Nice.
About that, which people can read more about. But that's essentially my point. It's actually there's a bit more of a transfer hurdle now, or a transfer delay, because Solomon's got to ask, unless he's just decided within himself to say, actually no, I'm just going to cut my losses and go somewhere where there's more guaranteed game time than Spurs, which but I don't see that happening given Spurs need a bigger squad and they've got Champions League football to offer as well. But with Postecoglou going, who by the way was the manager who brought him in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And also he's got decisions to make now. Do I wait to see if the new manager likes me? Do I just go for it and try and impress him, or do I wait to see how pre-season goes, and then towards the end of the window, if I'm not getting in, then I'll look for a move, which to be honest might be too late for Leeds, and by which time they'll have a lot more competition for Solomon as well. So there's a lot of questions to be asked, and because of the change of manager, which if it is Frank, we don't know, but if it is him and all the soundings are going to be him, then he'll want his own style of play, he'll want his own system. Then he's got to figure out, okay, well, where do I fit in with that? And all this takes time. It's not an overnight thing, unless it's a board decision that they've said we don't see Solomon being a viable financial option, so we're gonna get rid now. But then he's got 3 years on his contract, so again, all these factors come into play. So it won't be. If I had to hazard a guess, unless Tottenham have already made a decision for a boardroom level, I don't think this will get resolved within like a few weeks. It might be like at least a couple of, well, maybe a month, but nearer 2 maybe.
Yep. Yeah, good stuff. Well, anyone watching or listening, make sure you go read Isaac's article when it's live. As I say, the link's below in the description. So I mean that's probably it really for this time round, isn't it? I think there's going to be so much more to talk about in the coming weeks, and I think we were keen to do something on transfers just to kind of say, look, stay calm. We're not doing nothing. The Leeds are in a position with PSR cycle ending and etc.
And that's important to note. Just because there isn't anything concrete yet doesn't mean there isn't stuff going on. There was stuff going on in the days after promotion. You know what I mean? They were planning before promotion. So it's not like they're sitting twiddling their thumbs, so to speak. They're definitely out there. But with the PSR rules, unfortunately, it does restrict Leeds. But that's the same with all Premier League clubs, by the way. Obviously, you got Liverpool who brought a few people in, and other clubs as well. But that's because they've got more scope already. Leeds haven't got that already. So
I suppose the one thing with PSR and is hopefully Leeds' ability to do some really good commercial deals because of the size of the club, which does help against some of the smaller Premier League sides. So I think short term that might be a problem, but medium to long term it's not going to worry anyone. It certainly won't worry the 49ers. That's why they're here as owners of the football club, because there's so much headroom for Leeds United to grow, basically.
Yeah, and that's right. And also, when in the Premier League, you attract better commercial deals, better sponsors. As a result of going up, Red Bull they've increased the sponsorship as well. So it all marries in, and that's why the Premier League is so important, and that's why Premier League survival is so important as well. And the chairman has said that these are going to maximise all spending limits, or what did he say? He said spend every penny that we're allowed to. So there we go. And all the signs at the moment indicate that they're gonna back that up as well.
Not taking any dividends, eating tins of beans. That's what I think.
No. I don't think so. Well, to be fair, so on the call that we had with the chairman, he said that all the extra revenue that was being generated is going to be put back in onto the pitch, which is very, very good. Obviously, you'd expect that, but it's good to hear that from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks ever so much for coming on, Isaac. It's great to see you, and I know we'll be talking some more over the transfer window. Keep making sure you're busy, which I know you are already. And all I can do is apologise for every Leeds fan just saying, "Is there any news yet?" Constantly.
No, that's fine. All I can say is that there will be, in all likelihood, very, very much news this summer, because Leeds need to upgrade their squad. So strap in.
Yeah, let's watch this space. One last thing before we go, we are going to be setting up a raffle type competition through the podcast, which is going to be for some seriously good Leeds memorabilia, and all the money will go to Student Minds charity, which Hayden Evans was on the podcast talking about earlier on this season. So keep a watch out for that in the next few days, because honestly there is some seriously good stuff on that. But yeah, thanks ever so much, Isaac, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks everyone for tuning in as well.
Thank you.